And we welcome you to another edition of This Is Wrestling. It is Lee Versage along with Zach Swoggle. Did I say that right? Zach Swoggle?
I believe the name is Zach McGibbon. I think you have me confused with somebody else once again. Another wrestler who I will not name.
Zach Swoggle.
No. I don't think that'll work for me, brother.
Hornswoggle.
You know, Zach Swoggle was better if I had to choose between the two.
Yeah, I'm going to choose Zach Swoggle as well.
Yeah.
Zach friggin' McGibbon here as Hornswoggle was in town. Was Zach in town?
I was. And Hornswoggle was in town too.
Well, so you were just in town.
No. Two separate people. I thought that we had gotten it cleared over the weekend. I thought I had gotten myself vindicated. But apparently it's actually added more questions to people's minds. We'll talk about it here. So I was at Mystery Wrestling over the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at Mystery Wrestling in Gatineau, Quebec. And this is my second time at Mystery. And one Hornswoggle himself was booked for that show. And I got to give a shout out to Pat over at Mystery Wrestling, one of the co-owners of Mystery Wrestling with Evil Uno. He extended the invitation and said, hey, if you want to head backstage, you want to get that photo with Hornswoggle, I'll allow you to do that. So I appreciated Pat being able to open up the door there and let me in. And lo and behold, I was able to get a photo with the man himself, Hornswoggle. So it is finally done. I am vindicated. No longer will the rumors spread about me being Hornswoggle. Don't listen to the comments down below that are talking about AI or Photoshop or a mirror. None of that. I am not Hornswoggle. The photo proves it. You can see it at our This Is Wrestling social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The photo is real. I took it backstage, and I feel vindicatedly. I feel very, very vindicated.
What did you say into the mirror at Mystery Wrestling?
I did not say anything into the mirror at Mystery Wrestling. I had a short conversation with Hornswoggle. He was not aware of the bit, but the wrestlers in the locker room sure were when they were around. They were looking at me. It's like, oh my God, I'm seeing double here. I'm seeing double. So there's that. You know, it's funny though. So there was quite a few wrestlers backstage. Imagine my surprise, walking in and seeing Jay Lethal sitting at the table, signing a bunch of stuff for Mystery Wrestling. And I saw Stokely Hathaway as well. I actually ended up having a pretty lengthy conversation with Stokely. And as he was just kind of getting himself set on commentary.
Did you kiss his ass the entire time or just most of the time?
No. He was just asking me about the promotion, and we were talking about, going through customs and the travel that comes with that. And he asked me, what do I do? Was I a worker? And I said, look, I'm just going to be real with you here, Stokely. I am here for a bit. He's like, oh, okay. And I said, you see Hornswoggle over there in the corner, who was just kind of getting himself set up for the show? He's like, yeah. So the people around here think I'm him. And he just burst out into laughter. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, people think I'm him. Can you believe that? He thought it was the funniest thing that I was Hornswoggle. And so I said, so that's really why I'm here, is just for the bit. I'm here to, set some records straight and prove to people that, yes, I am indeed not Hornswoggle. And so I'm glad that the photo is out there now. I'm vindicated. Had a good chat with Stokely Hathaway. I ended up being a bell ringer for the show too, by the way, for Mystery Wrestling. So if you were watching the stream live on Twitch, that was me ringing the bell after the first match, because they were tied up with people in production trying to. One was dedicated to the stream, one was dedicated to the announcing, one was dedicated to the music, but the bell was wide open. It's like, hey, give me the hammer. I will ring that bell for you, and I will have a good form and the bell ringing as well. So if you were watching Mystery and you're like, wow, that guy that's ringing the bell really knows how to ring a bell. That was me.
I've never thought that for one ring beller in the world ever, let alone you.
That's right. Well, those minds were changed on that day. But no, I want to thank Mystery Wrestling for bringing me out and allowing me to go backstage and talk with the folks there. It was really cool to talk with some of the wrestlers. A shout out to Pat for allowing me in and allowing me to watch the show as well. And I figured, why not? I'll help back and ring the bell, and was able to watch Mystery Wrestling. A bunch of people tuning in on Twitch, about 200, 300 people on Centre Idolo, I think is the name of the building in Gatineau. And look, Mystery Wrestling, we've talked about it on this show. We're not the biggest comedy wrestling guys. It's just not what we seek in pro wrestling. So this is a very much a comedy-centric promotion. So it's not something I necessarily seek, but one of the things I will say is that it knows what it is. It knows it's a comedy promotion. It's going to book that way. It doesn't try to be anything else. It knows its identity, and you still got some cool moments, right? So one of the moments I think you would appreciate, Lee, in terms of a moment that did make me laugh. London Lightning faced off against Jay Lethal on the show, and Jay Lethal showed up as Black Machismo from TNA.
Nice.
Yeah, so he was in the full Macho Man gimmick, the whole Macho Man gear. And so they did the ring introductions, and they said, Black Machismo, his favorite wrestler is Jay Lethal, right? And got a little bit of a laugh. And then it went to London Lightning. It's like, London Lightning's favorite wrestler is Macho Man Randy Savage. And Lethal's, extending his hands like, oh, that's great. Yeah, that's good. That's the guy you got to cheer for, blah, blah, blah. And he turns his back, and the ring announcer says, I'm just kidding. My favorite wrestler is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And that got a big pop and a big laughter in the crowd. And Black Machismo turns around and was like, you lied to me. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I beat his ass at WrestleMania 3. So that got a pop out of me. But yeah, very much a comedy-centric promotion. It's been gaining a lot more traction. You see the clips on social media. I've talked about Mystery Wrestling on the show before as well. So if you're somebody that likes to seek out the comedy side of things and it's just full-on comedy, Mystery Wrestling would be the promotion for you. It's not necessarily the wrestling I personally, like in terms of how I view pro wrestling, but there were definitely moments on the show where it's like, okay, that was pretty funny. And that one for me was the London Lightning and Jay Lethal stuff was pretty funny to me. But I do appreciate them for allowing me to come in and watch the show and ringing the bell and all that sort of stuff. So,
who won the main event?
Main event was Psycho Mike against Hornswoggle. And Psycho Mike won the match. It was a ladder match. And how do I explain it here, Lee?
Don't.
Okay, I won't explain it. So Psycho Mike won.
Okay,
he won the ladder match. So
good. You see, folks, how I stopped that in its tracks. I feel exactly. I got way off topic with that.
But I do appreciate them for allowing me to come in. And again, Mystery Wrestling, it's not just something here locally that people are following along. It's also getting a big base on Twitch, and it is cool to see some of the talents that are being brought over from AEW to come over and have matches. So again, it was cool to see Jay Lethal, and he was chatting with London quite a bit, and being able to see Hornswoggle as well finally get that vindication was really cool.
WWE announces what they're calling a first of its kind developmental program. designed to provide up-and-coming independent wrestlers with a pathway to a potential career in the WWE. The program will be called WWE ID, short for WWE Independent Development. Paul Levesque saying WWE ID is the latest in our efforts to identify and support the journey of up-and-coming wrestlers, in turn raising the profile and strengthening the independent wrestling ecosystem. Under the program, the WWE will provide prominent independent wrestling schools with the goal of providing new trainees and existing talent at these select institutions. Got Booker T's Reality of Wrestling in Houston, the Nightmare Factory, Cody Rhodes in Atlanta, Seth Rollins, Black and Brave Academy in Davenport, Iowa. You got the Elite Pro Wrestling Training Center in Concord, New Hampshire, and Knox Pro Academy in Los Angeles. I think some people, Zach, are confusing this with what independent wrestling actually is. But when you first heard of what the WWE is doing and their new indie wrestling development program, your thoughts?
My initial reaction was, I think they are starting to realize that maybe this performance center is not giving them the results that they're looking for. And so now they're expanding out this program and going back to their roots, because they talk about how this is a first of its kind, blah, 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 blah. It's not really a first of its kind for WWE. This might be the first of its kind in the sense that it's first time that's really been official, that they partnered up with a bunch of wrestling schools. Like, over the last couple of decades, I could go back to the 90s when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was kind of getting his fill in Memphis in a partnership with the WWE. I believe he also wrestled for Dory Funk's school as well. During that time, a couple of wrestlers went through Dory Funk's school. Edge and Christian went through there. So it's not necessarily new. It's more of a getting back to their roots sort of move, because that was my initial reaction to this when I heard it, is that, okay, the way that WWE is going right now, they've obviously merged with the UFC and TKO, and Dana White has been talking about expanding the Apex Center, I believe is what it's called, Apex facility for the UFC, and there's renovations going on. And if you're TKO and you've got this debt that's kind of on you and you want to try and streamline costs, why would you want two high-profile facilities under your watch? And with the way that WWE has been looking into Las Vegas, and especially with WrestleMania coming up in Las Vegas too, and kind of making that their central headquarters, I think more and more you're starting to see this transition from the Performance Center in Florida to this new center in Las Vegas, where they could combine the UFC and WWE talents. And I think when you look at the Performance Center as well, so I don't know if I'm kind of in the minority here, but I firmly believe the Performance Center has not produced the results in terms of developing talent that the way WWE has been hoping for, especially talent that's molded from the ground up. Because
I couldn't agree with you more.
You look at the talents it's gone through. You've got, Bianca Belair, you got Braun Strowman, you got Chad Gable. I'm sure there's others I'm missing. Braun Breaker, I guess. But all these people that have come in, it's really the output that they've gotten, the return on investment that they've gotten in terms of talents that have been over onto the main roster or have been successful mid-card, main event, wherever. It's not that high since the Performance Center has started in the 2010s. A lot of the boost of the Performance Center has been guys that have already had previous experience on the independent scene. Like, does Roderick Strong need to go to the Performance Center so he could learn how to work the hard cam? No. Adam Cole, those guys, Samoa Joe, those guys aren't guys that need to go to the Performance Center for some extra fine tuning. Those are guys that you could put them on TV tomorrow. And I think a lot of that era of NXT that was carried over in the late 2010s is just guys that were high-level indie guys that were great in-ring wrestlers that were able to make the transition to WWE. And so you look at everything that's kind of gone through, all the talent that they've tried to do this NIL program as well with the NCAA athletes that have gone through. And there's more on NXT that's kind of being showcased. But you look at the main roster right now, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, the Usos, Sheamus, Gunther. Those are not guys that are built from the ground up in the Performance Center. Those are guys that are like the veterans. So all of that to say, I look at this and I think this is an acknowledgement of saying, okay, this Performance Center that we've put together is not working. We're not getting the star output that we've been looking for with doing this facility. To me, it's just a modern day WCW power plant. And at least the power plant had Goldberg in terms of a star. Not for in-ring work, but in terms of a main event attraction. So I think this is them going back to their roots. And I'm sure there's also questions because obviously we talked about the indies here on this show locally and how this could affect, talents and where they could get booked.
Yep.
And there's certainly comparisons you can make when it comes to NXT UK a couple of years ago. And you look at the independent scene in the UK now compared to where it was even, 5 years ago, it is a vastly different. Now, a lot of that also had to do with speaking out and self-inflicted wounds from the independent scene in the UK. But WWE NXT UK also did some damage to that scene because, like with WWE and historically has showed, that they are very controlling of their area and their environment and what we saw it with NXT UK. Like first these wrestlers would be able to work different independents. Then they would change it to where it's like, oh, you have to work with our partner promotions. Oh, by the way, you can't work on their pay-per-views. You have to be in dark matches for these promotions. It would get more and more and more. So I think you could see some people starting to see those similarities with this announcement saying, okay, are these wrestlers that are going to be in these schools, are they just going to be limited to these schools? Are they just going to be limited to Reality of Wrestling or the Nightmare Factory or Black and Brave Academy? So I think that's stuff that needs to be, talked about a little bit more, but that's all the negative stuff. And I think those are all legitimate concerns. What I will say, this is something that I've been wanting WWE to do for a while, is so that they could have their wrestlers get more reps. Because I think in terms of developing some of their guys and girls that are on the roster, they just need reps and matches and different ways to learn and wrestle. So this is a positive step in order to do that. I just worry that it's WWE. They're very controlling of everything that they want to do, especially with this sort of stuff. And we've heard about the plans from Paul Levesque many years ago about global localization, where you have an NXT performance center in this area and this area and this area, and having like the WWE influence of wrestling take over on the independent scene or different areas. I do worry about that. So I know that was a pretty long-winded answer there, Lee, but I think that's just kind of everything going on there.
So let me ask you and kind of dumb it down for some people.
Sure.
How much of this do you think goes back to, and we've talked a lot on the other episodes, right? Vince McMahon, who basically poached all the territories for his own good to make a national broadcast. When I first read all about what WWE ID was, does it feel to you like they're going to go around to some of the independents and take maybe the best one or two people and say, come live in Houston, come live in New Hampshire, come live in whatever. We're going to give you a little bit of funding. We'll give you a little bit of money and you're going to learn. And people are going to go like, oh, maybe I'll just take my shot. Do you think that they're going to go around to independent promotions like C4 and say, hey, London Lightning, Junior Benito, we will pay you to come down and learn our system? Do you think that that's possible?
I think it's definitely possible. And that might be a little concerning for some to hear, but I do think you look at it historically. You mentioned it with the territories, and I talked about recently, even with NXT UK, and that wasn't just a Vince McMahon thing. That was also a Paul Levesque Triple H idea that was being utilized. I think that's something that could happen. In terms of their expansion and trying to kind of get to the roots and control, a pipeline essentially of talent. And if you're a wrestler, it makes sense for you to say, hey, I'm going to get paid. I'm going to, I'm going to learn their way of how they wrestle. And if you're somebody that's grown up watching WWE and you're like, I want to be a WWE wrestler, they're going to put out that narrative of saying, this is the best way to become a WWE wrestler is to go to one of these schools. And you mentioned C4, and we did try to reach out to Mark for this episode about this, because he put out a great thread on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, about this. And he wasn't able to come on at this time, but we'll definitely have him on in the future. But one of the things that he mentioned in his tweets, and I thought it was very interesting, was, and I've got the tweets up here. He says, the point of independent wrestling is for talent to discover themselves and develop themselves, to grow, to learn. If you claim to be an independent but are bound to a billion-dollar company, you're not independent. If you're a young trainee, there's no fast track to the big leagues. I know when you're 19, 20, 21, etc., it may feel like it is now or never type situation to make a career in wrestling. Don't rush yourself. Pride yourself on growing and traveling. And he goes on to talk about more about, guys in the past in the independents. You look at the 2000s and the different wrestlers that wrestled during that time, that how they, traveled and they grew their work, and they worked in the Ring of Honors and the IWA Mid-Souths, and eventually going to Japan, in New Japan and Pro Wrestling Noah at that time, expanding and learning their craft and learning more about themselves as performers. And that's something I try to stress as well with some of the other independent wrestlers, is don't look at, WWE and say, if you want to get better, the best way is to kind of go to these different areas and learn their styles, so that, when I look at the way that NXT kind of trains its wrestlers, I just know if something goes bad in a match, and, we've seen that happen before. Something goes off in a match, a spot doesn't hit exactly right, or, they're off beat in terms of a sequence. I do worry with those talents where if something goes wrong, the whole match falls apart. Right. Where when you work on the independents, you can have that leniency to say, okay, I know next time if something happens in a match and something falls apart, I can adapt to that. And so that when I do get to that next level, I'm not going to be a deer in the headlights in front of a camera, in front of millions of people, panicking about my next spot. Right. So I look at this, and I think Mark makes a great point about, how this could be viewed in terms of wrestlers that are coming up as this sort of fast track. It's like, okay, if I want to go to WWE, I got to do this. And it also, for other independents that don't want to be a part of what WWE wants to do, they want to do their own thing. They want to try and scout their own talents. There's obviously questions for them. I don't want to speak for Mark too much, because I'm sure he has the same questions that we all do when it comes to how these WWE ID contracts are going to work, and, how these wrestlers are going to be able to be booked, if they're going to be able to be booked outside of WWE partnered promotions. But I think the message that he wants to get across is that people, especially younger wrestlers, should be looking to, diversify and go to different promotions and travel and go to Europe and go to Japan, or find these spots that have wrestling so that you can expand your craft, so you can be a better performer, so that when you show up to a WWE or an AEW, you have that ability to, walk in the door that day and say, okay, I am prepared. And unfortunately, though, I will say, with the way that it's a race for talent between not just WWE, but AEW, you're seeing a lot more guys that are in their early 20s, mid 20s, that usually would take a couple of years on the independent scene, grow a name for themselves on the independent scene. Now those guys are getting scooped up very young. I mean, look at Nick Wayne. He's like 18, 19. He's already being scooped up by AEW. Daniel Garcia is like 24, 25, and he's being, looked at by both AEW and WWE, obviously going to AEW. So it's obviously a different industry now from that standpoint, in terms of a rush for talent and trying to get talent into your company. But it really is interesting how this could go. And if you're AEW, you're looking at this and saying, okay, I guess we have to do something as well to kind of counter, so that we can have our own feeder, because right now they've just been relying on the indies to develop wrestlers, and then they'd be able to take them off the indies. Now, if I'm AEW, I'm looking at strategies to try and counter that from WWE, so that, you have your own access to a pipeline, because it also works for WWE in the sense that you can get the talent that you want and have them be away from AEW in terms of negotiations as well.
So let's again put this into, some understanding for the common person listening. Zach, you worked in Ottawa for a very high profile station. Mm-hmm. And you did that very young. So let's just say it's, you're in the system. And I'll try and be real here, or I'll try and at least ask some journalistic questions to my co-host here. I don't know how honest you want to be. Why did you leave?
I left because I felt I was going to have more opportunity in Belleville, which for some, they might hear that and like, oh, it's a bigger city. But the stuff that I've been able to do in Belleville, I've just gotten more opportunities to grow and expand, especially in the radio side of things, doing more, talk show stuff and doing more, reporting and being more on the radio side. I felt like I'd be able to expand and grow my wings if I were able to do that. So that's why I left for Belleville.
Okay. And that's what I would have said even without having you answer. You left because even though you went to a smaller market, you actually got to do more things. You got to learn and you got to get a handle on the business as a whole. Not that you completely have a handle on it, but working with me every week, you get a hell of a handle for sure.
For sure.
But it was the smartest thing for you in your career, because the things that you're learning and still doing today, you're already an accomplished newscaster, play-by-play guy, talk show host, can produce, can edit, can do all sorts, like do everything, so that the next opportunity that you have isn't pigeonholed into one company and one thing. And all of a sudden, if that company decides, you know what, Zach, we don't need you anymore, you're like, oh my God, what do? I don't know how to do anything. And that's kind of how it feels to me with this WWE. It's like, okay, you can take a shot. Like, let's just pick London Lightning because he's really young and we know him a little bit. And he's been on the AEW program.
Yep. And he's legitimately being looked at by AEW as well.
But let's just say the WWE comes in and goes, okay, we've actually been watching this guy from afar. And he goes there because they have picked him out. Okay, he is going to get paid a little bit. I don't think they're going to make mega money, but they are going to, they aren't going to have to, as Steve Austin used to say, buy the bag of potatoes and just eat potatoes for a week.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get a little bit more than that, and they're going to get all kinds of training with top people. But if you think about all the regions I just mentioned in Iowa and New Hampshire and LA and Houston and Atlanta, and how many people do you think are actually coming out of all of those places to make it? Like, few. Even if you just took the best person from all of them and said that these people are going to make it and have 6 full talents in your system, that's basically everyone else not making it. And then all you're learning is the WWE way of doing things. And it's great to know. It's not, I'm not putting it down saying you don't need to learn this, because the WWE has always kind of been the top standard. And like, I want to say the big leagues because things have changed, but they are the top dog, and you need to learn the way that they do things if you want to make it. You can't just go in and go, well, I'm who I am. Well, too bad. This is the way we do it.
Yeah.
And I respect the company for that. But if you don't make it, you have to be able to go to Japan, the NWA, Maple Leaf Pro, TNA. Like, you need to be able to go to all sorts of different places and shine and make it. And how are you going to do that if you just go and learn one system? So I think I understand the benefits of it, but I hope that people understand the risks if you really are serious about it, because I liken it to what you've done. You could have stayed in the system in Ottawa and been brought up, and maybe, and I'm not doubting you and your talent, but there's a long history, and sometimes people do what they want to do. And even if that overlooks talent. Like, you might make it. But now that you've gone somewhere else and have learned all sorts of different things about the business, for your next stop, you can go anywhere. And that to me is like, if you're serious about the business and you're serious about being in it long term, these are the things that you have to do. You have to do multiple things, and you can't just go to Concord, New Hampshire and think that this is the greatest thing ever and I'm going to make it. And my 25-year WWE career is right around the corner.
Yeah.
It's not. Almost assuredly, it's not.
WWE wants you to think that, but it's not going to be guaranteed for everybody. Especially in that company.
Yeah, but for most people.
Exactly.
Like almost all the people. There's always the 1%ers or the 2%ers that make it. And good for them. And if you want to believe that you're that person, that's great. I will never want to take away people's hope.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at some of the biggest stars around, as you said, look who's the AEW world champion. That guy was in the system. He was like, I got to get out of the system. Look who is the WWE world champion. The guy that was in the system that said, I got to get out of the system. Cody Rhodes and Jon Moxley are the world champions, right?
Mm-hmm.
In AEW and WWE. I know there's Gunther and he's somewhere on the back page of, I see the things coming. I saw the poster for WrestleMania and like Gunther's way at the back of it. I'm like, yeah. He's going to be a big star.
Yeah. Our world heavyweight champion, folks.
I couldn't even find him. Seriously, he was at the back. I couldn't even find him. Cody Rhodes and Jon Moxley are your world champions. They both left the WWE on their own and carved themselves out in the independents to make it back to where they are now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So those are your world champions. Wasn't too good for them to go to all kinds, like Jon Moxley was doing all kinds of independents and GCW and death matches and
yep. Went to Japan, yeah.
Over in Japan and certainly Cody with his story and All Out and
and how many times, by the way, kind of going off of that point, do we hear about guys that were brought up in the WWE system? That's all they knew. They worked in the development system for WWE. They went to the main roster. Then they got cut. And then we never hear from them ever again.
Right.
How often do we hear about that story? It's a lot. And I think it just kind of goes back to, their thought processes. If I go to this WWE system, this is the big leagues. I'm going to get here. I'm going to go to this main roster spot. And then if I get cut, well, I made it to the big leagues and I'm done. And if that's how they want to approach it, that's more power to them. They make their money. They're happy with their spot and whatnot. But if you want to truly be great, you want to truly be that top line guy, the guy that they look to you and they say, okay, we're going to put the belt on you and you're going to carry this company for the next 5-10 years or whatever, right? Those guys, as you mentioned, with a Jon Moxley, a Cody Rhodes, I know Gunther's the world heavyweight champion and we kind of joked about where he's been pushed, but he's also a guy that's traveled and gone to different places and learned different styles. Will Ospreay. I mean, one of the best wrestlers in the world, Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega, the only real exception to the rule in terms of being a guy that went through the system and made it all the way to the top is Roman Reigns. And that was because WWE made, come hell or high water, we're going to make sure that guy was going to be the top guy. So you look at that sort of pattern of success and it's like, okay, if this is what I have to do to make myself successful, I think that path has been laid. So, and I think that's what Mark as well was trying to lay out in his tweets about from the C4 account about how if you want to grow and get better, you have to diversify and go to different spots. And so, yeah, because WWE, of course, would want to get the messaging out there that this is the way, this is the system, we are the top dogs, and you got to go through this system if you want to make it, and we'll make sure we'll give you all this stuff, but, you know, this is the way to do it. And obviously, you know, we see now with all these different top guys and how WWE wants to control everything when it comes to the wrestling space, that is just simply not the answer. There's more to wrestling than just WWE. There's a bunch of different promotions where you could learn and be great and be even a legendary pro wrestler if you wanted to. So,
again, if you had to name your top 10 wrestlers today, I'm looking at guys like, as you said, Will Ospreay's number one. I don't even think it's close.
Yeah.
But like a non-injured Bryan Danielson is close. You have your champions in Cody Rhodes. You have John Moxley. We love Gunther. You look at other guys that you want to see in the ring that I still want to see in the ring, whether it's WWE, guys like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. I want to see them, not just because they're Canadian, because I really like them.
Yep.
And you look at, I mean, I know Drew McIntyre was a WWE guy and then left, and he came back, but he had to learn the hard way too.
Yep.
Right? And these are all, if you go down and say the top 10 wrestlers in the world today, who are they and what are their backgrounds? Whether it's WWE or AEW or anything, tell me what wrestler has just stayed in the same promotion and done things one way his entire life to that much success. Maybe you could have said Okada before.
And even then he had the excursions.
Yeah, exactly. But with the WWE, like, again, as you said, I can't reiterate the point enough. Vince McMahon decided a long time ago that John Cena and Roman Reigns were going to be his guys for the last 20 years. Okay. That's what he decided. And as you said, come hell or high water, people were booing Roman Reigns off of the stage, off of the ring, booing him. Not because he had heat, because they didn't want to see him.
Yeah.
Good on him. He stuck with it. But how many other guys are out there? It's just not the case. Right? And all the guys that are sort of going through the system, I don't think like they're rocketing. And I was going to talk to you about all this wrestling. We're probably not going to do that on this episode because there's not all that much to talk about anyway.
Yeah.
But Braun Breaker, they put the Intercontinental belt back on him again. And it's like, the guy's got a little bit of potential, but it's not like when Braun Breaker comes out, I'm like, oh man, I was going to leave the room, but now I got to sit down for 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's not the case for me.
I don't
either.
feel that way at all.
No.
All of the people that you want to see, all the people that you want to hear from, whether it's wrestling or something else, you want to hear from them probably because they've had a ton of different experiences. You want to watch them because they've had a ton of different experiences, and then they're able to share it with the world. Rey Mysterio will go down, I mean, not anymore, but he'll go down as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. How many different promotions was he in? Every one of them.
Oh, yeah. WCW, AAA, before going to WWE.
You look at Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
Same thing. Right? Every one of them. So I can't reiterate your point enough here about, I understand why they're doing it. It's smart of them to do. I just hope that people that are serious about the business understand that it's not going to be the end of the road just because they're there and maybe they like you at the beginning. And I hope people know that, Zach. I really do.
I hope so too.
All right. I know we've talked a lot about this, Zach, but I think it's an important topic. So I don't know how much of the world of professional wrestling you want to get to this week. What else did you want to get to?
Well, I mean, before we even kind of move on to that, I just wanted to also touch on to when it comes to what we were talking about with the WWE ID, that I know there are people that from the scene that listen into this show. And I hope that's what we've been kind of saying resonates with those that are listening in, because I think it's something important for them, whatever they kind of aspire to when it comes to their independent wrestling careers. So I thought that was a great chat there about, everything going on with the WWE ID system. In terms of everything else in the world of professional wrestling, I mean, the TVs haven't really been knocking it out of the park for me, for both WWE and AEW. I don't really have much to say in terms of like a hot or heated takes about either programming right now. I still like the Moxley stuff, but I'm not 100% behind the NWOB team out there trying to defend AEW's honor with, Johnny Hungy, John Silver holding a bat or the nunchucks or whatever outside. And, you got the parade of geeks, unfortunately, that are defending AEW's honor, and Daniel Garcia is there as well. But in the WWE side, there really isn't too much to say. They're kind of building to the Crown Jewel show in Saudi Arabia. That's coming up soon, so get excited there, Lee. But,
yeah, I'll get excited on the review. I don't know if I'm going to get excited on the preview here.
Yeah,
based on
previous WWE reviews, I might get heated again. We'll see. Who knows?
Well, hey, listen, there is some good news. Doesn't look like Goldberg's going to be there.
That's right. He
that makes my heart warm. So
I thought for sure he was going to get a Saudi Arabia payday.
100%. I actually can't believe he's not. So good on the WWE for doing that. I don't understand them putting the belt back on Braun Breaker and taking it off of Jey Uso just to forward their bloodline storyline. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think you had a bunch of people that wanted to get behind Jey, and to forward this storyline. I don't know. It doesn't do a lot for me, and certainly Breaker doesn't do a lot for me as an Intercontinental champion. Yeah. But I told you the one thing, and you know what, it was pointed out to me in the last episode, so I do need to point this out. You absolutely no-sold when I told you that Chris Jericho was going to be a 2-time Ring of Honor champion. You no-sold it last week.
I did no-sell it, yeah.
Yeah, and then what happened?
He won the Ring of Honor World Championship.
Yeah, he did. My man, Chris Jericho, the modern-day Hulk Hogan. He wasn't laying down for anybody when it comes to Ring of Honor.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He might as well have dropped the leg on Mark Briscoe as well, just for good measure.
No sold it, Zach. When I told you big time titles are going to change hands, again, not the promotion, Ring of Honor world title match just in the middle of a regular Dynamite.
Yeah. I was just going to say, can I go on a rant here for a second?
Yeah.
When did people all of a sudden care about the Ring of Honor World Championship?
We don't.
But I guess because Jericho won it, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't believe that Chris Jericho is a world champion in 2024 and blah, blah, blah was the reaction I saw. First of all, Lee, as you mentioned, the Ring of Honor World Championship was in the halfway point of the show.
Yeah.
It might as well just be called the ROH Mid-Card Championship, because that's what it is. It is not a world title in our 2024 states. I'm sorry, it's just not. It's not booked that way. It just isn't. And so all of a sudden, after Jericho beat Briscoe in the ladder match, which he needed help to win, by the way, the match, by the way, all of a sudden people are like, oh, I can't believe that Jericho would win this and blah, blah, blah. What's this going to do? It's Ring of Honor. Who cares? what it signified to me was them saying, well, there's been rumors that Ring of Honor might be on one of the lower level Turner networks, Turner channels, and they need a big star that has some drawing power, and don't let other people tell you differently. Jericho still draws every quarter hour that he's in. There's a reason why he's being pushed. Okay? He's still bringing in numbers. And so if it's true that Ring of Honor has got TV and they're gonna, put something on to whatever it's gonna be called, I think they're gonna rebrand True TV into TNT Sports or something like that. And that's the rumored spot for Ring of Honor. If they're doing that, it's them saying, okay, we're going to put the title on a guy that's an established name so we can establish. It's the same strategy they did with AEW. I mean, come on, guys. What are we doing here? All of a sudden, people caring about the Ring of Honor World Championships and writing eulogies about Mark Briscoe's title reign. It's like, when did people care? We barely cared about talking about it on this show. I would joke all the time, and still do, about Jericho losing all of his matches and losing against Briscoe. Now all of a sudden he wins one match with help in a ladder match where Briscoe got the visual that he was going to win, but then they went for the heat, and now they've got Jericho with the belt in a heel tactic way, because guess what, Lee? He's a heel. And so all of a sudden people care about the Ring of Honor World Championship. What gives? It's a mid-card belt on this show. And now they're trying to rebuild it so that it could be something tangible to be a legitimate world championship, if it's true that they're going to get this Ring of Honor TV soon. So,
I felt bad for Sammy Guevara, who lost to Shelton Benjamin in a world where 2 years ago, if you told me Sammy Guevara was losing to Shelton Benjamin, I would have called you crazy. Yeah,
same here. I will say, though, I know you kind of brushed it off on the last episode, but...
Oh, at least I acknowledged it. Okay,
yeah, you did acknowledge it. That's true. But you also brushed it off. Shelton Benjamin's been pretty good in the ring. I think he's been really good. I've actually, I liked him. I've liked him. I liked him.
Except for his finisher, which again is a terrible finisher. The exploder slam or whatever they call it.
Exploder suplex.
It's terrible. It's just a body slam.
His super kicks, though, let me tell you, they've looked good, clean.
All right.
He's looked good. He's looked good.
He actually has looked really good, except he's got a terrible finisher.
It's
which,
true.
Don't worry, there's a lot of people that could go, excuse me, Mr. Benjamin, I have the worst finisher.
Yes.
Okay? There are a lot of people. And it's nice to see at least Mercedes Moné has moved off of whatever the hell she was doing before.
Yeah.
To go back into the bank statement or whatever she's calling it now.
Yeah.
Something that was not what she was doing before.
No.
There's just some terrible finishers.
Yeah.
And so I don't like Shelton Benjamin's finisher at all, but he has looked decent in the ring.
Yeah.
So
And Sammy's just in a position right now where he's not as focused on in terms of a push right now. So I didn't really have an issue with him losing here. I
know that. I'm just saying 2 years ago, I never would have.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
That's all. That was my only point.
Yeah. No, I got what you were saying. I just want to point out there that some might look at that and say, oh, this is a guy that they built as a pillar and blah, blah, blah. It's like, look, where do we really see Sammy Guevara? I mean, Tony Khan is so insistent. We talked about insistent booking earlier. Tony is insisted on making Sammy Guevara a babyface for whatever reason, and I still don't understand why. He is so insistent on making him a top babyface guy. Mm-hmm. It feels like there should be a switch right now with Jack Perry and Sammy Guevara in terms of their pushes. Like,
I agree.
Like Perry should be the babyface and Guevara should be the heel right now. But having said that, like the way that he's pushed, again, he's got a Ring of Honor belt. Like, he's not in a major focus right now. It's fine for him to take a loss against Shelton Benjamin as they're building him up so that eventually when he does have the match with Swerve Strickland on Dynamite this week, when Swerve beats him, it will at least mean something. It's part of it's very basic pro wrestling booking. You build up a guy that's debuted in the promotion so that eventually he looks strong enough against one of the top guys so that the top guy can beat him. And then it continues this storyline with the Hurt Business or whatever they're going to be called, Hurt Syndicate, against Swerve Strickland.
All right, too much wrestling talk, Zach. We had a really good segment. I didn't want to get too much into the actual wrestling talk, which we will do. We will do a review of Crown Jewel coming up. You can enjoy episode number 5, Family Business, of the McMahon Netflix documentary, also coming out this week. And when I talk to you next, we'll have Freaky Fest, the AEW Dynamite. We'll have Crown Jewel. We'll have all kinds of things to talk about when we get back into the wrestling scene.
I don't think it's called Freaky Fest.
What's it called? Isn't it called something like that? Freak Fest or
something? I don't think it's Freaky Fest though. That popped me. I'm not gonna lie. Well, that might be a totally different kind of show on Wednesday night if it's called Freaky Fest.
All right.
That's all I'm saying. I'm
You're gonna make me look it up before we get
Fright
out.
Night.
Okay?
Fright Night is what it's called. Fright Night.
Freaky Fest, Fright Night, Zach. It's the same thing.
Oh
okay?
God.
Happy Halloween for those in Belleville. You'll see Hornswoggle again. He'll go out as himself coming out on Thursday night. But that's okay. Have a great Halloween, Zach. When I talk to you next, it'll be November. Oh my God.
Right? That's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy.
Oh my God.
And as you mentioned too, the next Vince McMahon documentary episode will be coming out this week as well. I guess we'll quickly mention this here because there was some talk about it. Vince is starting a new entertainment company, apparently, that will start in 2025 if all goes right, which I fail to see the direction, but who knows with Vince, honestly, where it could go. There's a reason why he thinks he could pull this off is because he's been able to pull it off in the past. So I'm not going to say it's 100% uncertain, 100% certain he's going to, fail at this, but that's certainly something. Bringing in some ex-WWE executives in there, including one named in the Janelle Grant lawsuit as well, as an interesting strategy. So we'll see if it pays off for him, to quote Dodgeball. But I want to mention that, and I also wanted to quickly mention, because I think it is also important to mention, that there was another lawsuit as well against WWE, Vince McMahon, Linda McMahon. We talked about it a little bit with Tanner last week about the Ring Boys, but there's a new lawsuit from the Ring Boy scandal. I won't go over everything that's in there because, like the Janelle Grant lawsuit, there's a lot of icky details and unfortunately photographs that are attached into the lawsuit as well. So, but I highly recommend people kind of, read into it and understand more, because this is one of the more forgotten controversies of WWE and their history. And it's still something that's being impacted by people, former Ring Boys today. And, there's the person that's representing them is also involved with one of the other high profile sex trafficking cases. I think it was with Peter Nygaard. So it's another lawsuit against WWE and another lawsuit against Vince McMahon that's being circulated. So we'll see where that goes from there. But again, I recommend people read that lawsuit because I do think it's important to really kind of understand. And I think we've been doing a good job as well, Lee, in terms of the actual documentary review of analyzing Vince's character throughout and talking about, how he views things. So if all that kind of coming together, I wanted to make mention of that too, that lawsuit is out there as well. So, but yeah, just to kind of end things off, listen to our Vince McMahon documentary stuff. I think it's some of the best stuff we've been doing since we started this podcast. It's different from our usual reviews and coverage of news. And I've gotten great feedback from people about it. And also, speaking of feedback, I know we'll wrap this up. I just realized this popped in my head. But I want to thank as well, I don't know about you, Lee, I had a bunch of people reach out recently about the independent reviews that we've been doing. I had quite a few people backstage at Mystery and people that listen in the show sending us stuff as well. Recently, we've been getting a lot of people thanking us for doing the independent reviews and putting a spotlight on the local wrestling scene here in the Ottawa-Gatineau region, the 613 area, and a little bit in Kingston sometimes, but mainly the Ottawa-Gatineau area. Very appreciative of that. It makes it easier when the scene is very good. And there's a lot of really talented performers out there, and we enjoy talking about C4 and all the latest that's going on there. And it's really cool. I had one message say that they were getting back into C4, and they have gone back into our catalog and downloaded all of our C4 reviews so that they could listen and follow along with the storylines that have come up to this point, which is really cool to read.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
let me catch people up on what's going to happen in the future. Junior Benito. It's going to be bad for McCray Martin. Okay. Hot stepper, watch your hot steps. Telling you, this guy's bad news. Traveling on the road, tag team champions, partners, traveling all together, best friends. Yeah, we've seen it before. We've seen what happens.
It is professional wrestling.
I'm trying to watch out for you, hot stepper. Okay? Don't be the Marty Jannetty. Just don't be the Marty Jannetty. Okay? Take control now before you get there. Oh, I feel so bad for what Junior's gonna just step and walk all over that guy. That guy's good. I love my McCray Martin.
Yeah. Hot Stepper, Junior Benito, London Lightning, bunch of talented wrestlers on the scene.
Yeah,
So.
no, and I've gotten a lot of feedback too, which is awesome. And it was great that you brought that up. Okay, we'll get more into the independent scene, and we'll get back into the world of AEW and WWE crown jewel in our next episode. For Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks for listening to This Is Wrestling.